At sunset, Troy stared at its destroyer, an enormous wooden horse outside the gates. The Greek camp was empty, its huts burning and ships gone. After 10 years, the enemy seemed defeated. Cassandra warned that death was hiding inside, but the victory-starved crowd heard only another prophecy of disaster. A priest hurled his spear into the horse, and its hollow body groaned. Yet years of hunger, funerals, and fear had made caution feel like cowardice. The Trojans widened their own gateway and dragged the offering into the city. At midnight, hidden Greek warriors opened a wooden panel and descended into sleeping streets. Before dawn, the gates were open, the fleet had returned, and Troy was burning. Legend's greatest fortress fell not when an army broke its walls, but when Troy believed the war was over. Troy was not only a place in a poem. At Hisarlik in northwestern Turkey, archaeologists uncovered city after city, built, damaged, and rebuilt across roughly 4,000 years. Its position near the Dardanelles connected Anatolia, the Aegean, and routes toward the Black Sea, giving the kingdom strategic value. The massive sloping walls of late Bronze Age Troy explain why storytellers imagined a fortress resisting an army for a decade, though the names inside them remained forever silent. But stone cannot name Achilles, count 1,000 ships, or prove that Helen watched from the towers. Homer's Iliad took shape through oral tradition centuries later, mixing memories of Bronze Age warfare with later language and customs. Hittite tablets add a tantalizing shadow. They mention Wilusa, probably Troy, and Ahhiyawa, probably the Mycenaean Greek world. They suggest struggles in western Anatolia, but preserve no clear record of Homer's expedition. History gives us a real city and a violent age. Legend gives that silence faces, motives, and a war the world refused to forget. Legend begins not with an invasion, but with a dangerously poisoned judgment before the watching gods. Paris, Prince of Troy, was asked to choose the most beautiful of 3 goddesses, and Aphrodite promised him the most beautiful woman alive. That woman was Helen of Sparta, wife of King Menelaus, and ancient versions disagree whether Paris abducted, seduced, or persuaded her. To the kings gathering in Greece, this meant humiliation, broken hospitality, and the dangerous politics of honor. Menelaus demanded Helen back, while his brother Agamemnon turned the insult into a coalition of rulers hungry for glory and plunder. Odysseus came from Ithaca, Ajax from Salamis, Nestor from Pylos, and Achilles arrived with a reputation larger than life. The fleet crossed the Aegean and beached below Troy, where ships became barracks and the shore became a kingdom of war. Priam refused to surrender his son, Helen, or the city's pride, and Hector became the shield between his family and the invaders. One disputed woman became a battlefield on which thousands of men could call ambition duty. The war remembered as a siege was rarely a single ring around Troy. Greeks raided neighboring towns, seized treasure, enslaved women, and survived from the country they destroyed. Troy's gates opened for counterattacks, while Anatolian allies came to defend Priam's city. Seasons changed, boys became soldiers, and the original insult hardened into a life neither army could end. In the 10th year, the Iliad begins with disease in the Greek camp after Agamemnon dishonors a priest and refuses to return his captive daughter. Forced to yield her, Agamemnon seizes Briseis, a woman awarded to Achilles as war plunder before the watching army. Achilles rages because his commander has publicly stripped away his honor. He withdraws his warriors and asks that the Greeks suffer until Agamemnon understands what he has lost. Hector sees the quarrel opening a path toward the ships, but every step carries him farther from Andromache and their infant son. The armies claim to fight for Helen, yet war turns on another captive woman unheard by powerful men. Honor disguises vengeance as duty. Without Achilles, the Greeks retreat until Trojan fire reaches a ship. Patroclus, Achilles' closest companion, cannot watch men die for another man's wounded pride. He begs to wear Achilles' armor, hoping its sight will terrify the Trojans and buy time. Achilles agrees, but orders him to save the ships and return without chasing glory toward the walls. When Patroclus enters battle beneath Troy's darkening stone walls, the Trojans believe their deadliest enemy has returned, and panic tears through them. He saves the ships, kills Troy's ally Sarpedon, then forgets the boundary Achilles gave him. Near the city, Apollo strikes from behind, a Trojan spear wounds him, and Hector delivers the final blow before taking the armor. The disguise that saved an army carries Patroclus into the fate meant for the man whose identity he borrowed. When the news reaches Achilles, he collapses over the body, covers himself in ash, and cries so terribly that his mother hears beneath the sea. His anger at Agamemnon is finished, but a more merciless rage has taken its place. Achilles returns in new bronze armor beneath an ominously darkening morning sky, knowing revenge will shorten his life. He drives the Trojans across the plain and kills until the river itself rises against the bodies choking it. The defenders escape through Troy's gates, but Hector remains outside while Priam and Hecuba beg their son to enter. When Achilles approaches, Hector's courage breaks, and the men race 3 times around the walls as Troy holds its breath. Athena deceives Hector into believing a brother stands beside him, then vanishes when he turns for help. Alone, Hector asks that the winner return the other's body, but Achilles refuses a promise because grief has left no room for mercy. Achilles kills him and drags the body behind his chariot while Hector's family cries from the walls. Days later, old Priam enters the Greek camp, kneels before his son's killer, and kisses the hands that destroyed his family. Achilles sees his father in Priam, and for one night grief achieves what war could not. Enemies share food, tears, and mercy. The Iliad ends with Hector's funeral, leaving Troy still defiantly standing, and the war unfinished. Later tradition carries the survivors toward an ending that removes nearly every hero able to enjoy it. Paris kills Achilles with Apollo's help, and Greeks fight to recover the body of the warrior who seemed stronger than fate. Ajax expects Achilles' armor, but when awarded to Odysseus, humiliation drives him into madness and death. Greece has lost its fighter, Troy its defender, and victory belongs to men living among graves. Prophecies and captured secrets say force alone will never open the city. The trap must turn relief itself into a weapon against men desperate to believe peace. Odysseus proposes a weapon shaped like a sacred offering, and Epius builds a hollow horse large enough to conceal chosen warriors. The army burns its camp and sails behind Tenedos, leaving Sinon to explain the gift. After 10 years, the Greeks stop trying to break Troy's walls and plan how to make the Trojans break them instead. Morning reveals an empty shore and the towering horse where the Greek camp had been. Sinon allows himself to be captured and says the Greeks left it for Athena after a decade's war, built too large for Troy to move inside. "Destroy it," he warns, "and the goddess will punish them. Claim it, and her protection will become theirs." Cassandra recognizes disaster, while Laocoon strikes the horse and warns his people to fear Greeks bearing gifts. Later tradition sends sea serpents to kill Laocoon and his sons, a horror misread as punishment for attacking something sacred. The debate ends because after years of hunger and funerals, the city desperately wants the evidence of surrender to be true. Workers widen the gateway, rollers grind, and ropes tighten as families pull their enemies' hidden soldiers uphill. At the threshold the horse catches, and for one last moment Troy seems to resist its destruction. Then the wheels move, music rises, and the people celebrate around the weapon beside their homes. Above them, Cassandra watches truth become useless because no one will believe it. Night covers a city exhausted by celebration, its watchfires low and defenders asleep. Sinon releases the hidden warriors, and Odysseus leads them from the horse to kill the guards and open the gates. Signal flames summon the fleet from Tenedos, and Greeks pour into streets they could never reach by day. Houses burn, families scatter, and victory becomes a sack in which temples offer no protection. Later tradition places Priam at an altar where Achilles' son, Neoptolemus, kills him among the ruins of his dynasty. Hector's infant son is condemned as a future avenger, while Cassandra is dragged from Athena's sanctuary, and Trojan women are divided as captives. Menelaus finds Helen, yet her return cannot restore the lives consumed in her name. Aeneas escapes carrying his father and leading his son, an image Rome later transforms into another empire's beginning. By sunrise, victorious Greece possesses Troy, but its prize is a burned city, enslaved survivors, angry gods, homeward roads filled with punishment, and no clean triumph left worth carrying home. Archaeology cannot show us a horse, Hector's grave, or the army that attacked Troy. It reveals several Troys built over one another, with late Bronze Age levels damaged by earthquake, fire, violence, or some disputed combination. Troy 6 had monumental defenses and probably ended after an earthquake, while denser Troy 7a also met destruction. Neither layer names Priam, and no ruin confirms a 10-year coalition launched for Helen. Mycenaean palaces and the Hittite Empire collapsed during the wider Late Bronze Age crisis, but Troy did not burn that world by itself. Centuries later, singers shaped fragments of memory into heroes embodying rage, loyalty, cunning, and grief. Homer's poem refused to end with conquest. It ended with Trojans burying Hector and enemies discovering the same sorrow. The horse and sack came through wider tradition, turning Troy's fall into a warning about victory, deception, and the need to believe danger has passed. Perhaps no single night happened this way, but Troy survives because every age recognizes the moment hope opens a gate that strength could never break.